Welcome to the Upper Transfer Show. The transfer show we're going to bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Also available on Anchor if you prefer the audio versions of our show. Head over to Podbean, Spotify, or wherever you pick up your audio shows. And joining me today, my co-host of the transfer show going forward, Dean Fitz. Dean, how you doing, my man?
Just before we get going, come on, the mighty Reds tonight. We can do this. If anyone in football can turn this around, it's Liverpool FC.
Jesus, that's a serious change from Monday. I'm really looking forward to that.
I've been just trying to big myself up all morning that we're going to do this. Stranger things have happened,
Excellent.
Six years ago tonight, Dejan Lovren popped up in the 94th minute with a header to knock Dortmund out when everyone said we were done. So, I know Monday night I was a bit down and I was already thinking about the Leeds game, but, as a Liverpool fan and a diehard Liverpool fan, would never say never.
That's it. Well, this is our first transfer show. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at some transfer speculation out there at the moment. We're going to talk about a couple of deals that have been completed. And then we're going to focus mainly after that on Liverpool. What we think they might need in the summer, who might potentially go out, who might potentially come in. And each week what we're going to do is we're going to bring you a different fan on who's going to talk about their club and what they believe their club needs to bring in and who potentially will go out. So let's kick it off. I suppose there's nowhere else to start really but with Jesse Lingard, is there? I mean, the talk around this man at the moment is unbelievable. It seems everyone's in for him. What you thinking on it?
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing what a move can do for a player's confidence. When you're playing for a club like Man United, like when you think about, like Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool, United, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Juventus, you talk about the big teams in each league. When you're at those clubs and you're already talked about as you must be a decent player to be at these kind of clubs. Jesse Lingard's 28 years of age and people are still talking about him having a bright future and he's the next big thing and all. He's been in obscurity for about 3-4 years. We never really set the world alight, and I think that was the hindrance of playing at a big club like Man United. Where I'm not saying Liverpool were a big club and Torres weren't a big club and Torres was there, but you look at the impact he had at Liverpool, just for instance, and then you go to a club like Chelsea where there's so many egos, and you don't have that kind of form. There's no at that time when he was at Chelsea, there was no togetherness, there was no bond, there was all little cliques. It was all about who was on the big money and all champagne Charlies, as if we'd say. But I think that's the kind of thing that was holding Jesse Lingard back. He needed to step out of that stigma of being a Man United player. And you know what? As a Liverpool fan, I'll never give players that play for United any credit until they step away from playing for Man United. And to see the impact he's had at West Ham, like these guys literally just scraped by staying in the Premier League last season to being. And you know what? If Liverpool aren't going to get top four, really, really do. I'd love to see West Ham now finish in the top four and just see what it brings to the club, because you've the likes of Chelsea, Leicester, we've all sampled it before, but the likes of West Ham, and that's not solely 100%, but 90% of that is down to Lingard. He comes across as a likeable guy. You see the videos with Declan Rice and what have you. That's what it's all about, I think, of football. You have to have that togetherness. You have to have that bond, what Liverpool had for the last 2 years. Unfortunately, that seems to have kind of ebbed away this season. But, you're talking about who we'd sign for. Everybody's kind of sniffing around. We have Arsenal. There's talk from staying at West Ham now and Declan Rice going to United. As a Liverpool fan, I hope that he doesn't go back to United, because there's talk of Solskjaer is going to reach out and say, look, you've grabbed your chance with both hands, come on back to us. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a Liverpool fan, but I do hope that he tells Solskjaer to do one, because he went through a tough period losing his mother bad breakup and stuff like that, and he didn't seem to get the support that he needed. And he's gone off now. He's kept his head down. Like, he's the best form of any player in Europe at the moment is Jesse Lingard. You know what I mean? So it remains to be seen. I do think that the whole want to make it at Man United and be a central figure there is going to stick in his mind, and that's what I'm afraid of for his own future. Is that if Solskjaer does reach out and says, "Look, you've proved yourself," give him that false sense of security that they come back to Man United, there's a place there for you in the team. I just hope he's not stupid enough to say, "Right, Grant, I'm going back to Man United." I think it's best for him if he stays at a club like West Ham. I don't think Arsenal is the place for him to go. I genuinely think the way he's hit the ground running at West Ham, they finish strong at the end of the season, and they probably, if they don't get Champions League football, there's a chance to get Europa League football. Go and prove yourself in the Europa League. You know what I mean? What?
Yeah, there's talk as well after coming out during the week there as well that Real Madrid and PSG were also interested and linked with him. But I mean, I know we say he's 28 and stuff like that, but it's, like a great car. There isn't much mileage on the clock there. He's been.
Can't see that happening though. Let's be honest. I just can't see Real Madrid. I just can't see him at Real Madrid or PSG. It doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. He's doing so well at West Ham now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you would think that being wrapped up in the Rice deal would be the way to go, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but then again, if they got Champions League football, West Ham, you have that big money coming through. If you're Declan Rice, do you want to stay at West Ham for a year and give it a go, Champions League wise? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, he had the chance last summer to go to United and he didn't take it. I mean, they were definitely in for him. So, it's an interesting conundrum, but certainly, like, if you look at Jesse Lingard over the last 8 to 10 weeks, he's just been a revelation, really. You know what I mean? In terms of his play, in terms of, as you said, with the videos and his attitude. I mean, he always came across as a likable guy who would lift up a dressing room anyway. He enjoys the fun of it, and I'm sure Moyes. It's a revelation for Moyes as well in the job he's done because but they're actually playing football, which even from his point of view hasn't been a trade of that man, and he has them playing football. So
he has to get, regardless of where they finish in the league now, he has to win Manager of the Year, because to go from literally scraping by with the skin of your teeth staying in the Premier League last season to being on the cusp of Champions League or Europa League football, I don't give a shit where Solskjaer has took United, and that's not just because I hate Man United. That's solely out of Manager of the Year should be down to where the team came from to where that's complete different parallels. To go from that far down to this high up with no expectations whatsoever. West Ham the last few years is like, if we can finish in the top 10, that's a massive success. He has to get Manager of the Year, in my opinion, 100%.
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's talk about something that came up on the Monday night show as well. Harry Kane. Seems to be a merry-go-round about him, and it's a revolving around whether he'll stay in the Premiership, whether he's saying the talk at the moment is he's going to put in a transfer request if Spurs don't make top 4. So I think that's a given. So the talk of him moving, I'm not convinced yet he's going to move. I don't see Harry Kane wanting to go to a bigger club full of stars where he's just one of the players, as opposed to being at Spurs, very comfortable. He's the main man. There's talk of PSG, but the talk with PSG is mainly centered around the decision by Mbappe at the end of the season, whether he's going to leave. If he leaves, the talk is Kane is going to be the target to come in. What you thinking around this at the moment?
I think every big player around Europe, just on the Mbappe situation, is kind of like they've sent out feeders. Your Salah being talked about was replacing him. I think the PSG representatives are reaching out to anyone that's like coming into that last year, that contract, or anything they can see from the outside looking in, of players that are kind of disgruntled and where their team is at the moment. Like, they're just like laying that out there. Look, if he does leave, would you be interested? I don't think Harry Kane is the type of player that would fit in at PSG. Watching that game last night, I just don't see where he fit. I just don't see where he fits in. I can't see Neymar taking to Harry Kane. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. We talked about the other night the whole Man City situation. Man City aren't going to pay 120, 130 million for a guy who's going to need he's going to need to be managed regarding his two bad ankles. With Man City being the type of team where you're not playing every single game of the season, your game time's being managed. There's a strong rotation there. I don't see Harry Kane as the type of player that wants to be in a rotational system. I think he wants to be, unless he's injured really badly, he wants to be front and center. I do think he's a bit of a fame hungry whore, as you say. He loves that center of attention. I think when Gareth Bale came back, I think that kind of took the spotlight off him a bit. And I do think that him and his agent are using this whole thing of winning trophies as what you said the other night, as get that big last contract, because I just don't see him going to the likes of City. I read on Monday that there was talks of Dortmund trying to lure him over if Haaland goes. It's a strange one, but like when you put the head down and you really think about it, I can only see one outcome, and that's that he stays at Spurs and gets more money, and just being another nearly one, like, you know what I mean, another. I'm not even going to put him in the same category as Steven Gerrard, but that type of, he's on that level where he banged in all these goals. He was England's top scorer, Spurs top scorer, blah blah blah, but never won anything. And I just see it as it's a case of he probably knows himself that none of the big clubs are going to come in, because let's be real, you have to be looking at the injury side of things. In the last 4 years, I think he's missed nearly 2 years through injury, like as a combined time out thing. And I just don't see any of the big clubs going out and spending ridiculous money on him to risk that, especially not the likes of City and all. I just don't see that PSG thing coming to fruition. It's a strange one, but if I'm going to be honest, and I really do think that he's just going to stay at Spurs for more money.
Yeah, that would be my thinking on it at the moment. Just moving on to, speaking of Erling Haaland, Mino Raiola came out there during the week saying that Borussia Dortmund don't want to sell Erling Haaland. To me, that sort of sounded like a bit of a backtrack over the heat he was getting in terms of the financial contract that was put on the table at Barcelona, that Barcelona leaked and basically just sold him down the river, basically, as being a joker in terms of these figures,
I'll just say before you go further, I'm absolutely delighted that Barcelona did that, because he's an absolute parasite to football, that fella. He's an absolute parasite to football. As much as I'd love Haaland at Liverpool, I don't think Klopp will go near it because of Raiola. I think Man City will kind of step back from that because of Raiola. The man is a parasite. He's no love for football whatsoever. It's all about, he's that greedy pig, isn't he, where he just wants to sit around and get fat and just make as much money as possible. And I'm surprised that Erling Haaland's father, Alfie, I'm surprised at him wanting him to stay with the likes of Raiola, because I can only see trouble further down the road for that guy, sticking around with him.
Well, I suppose the problem with it is that, like, I mean, the role of an agent is to get you the best deal possible and not really to be concerned about the morals of the game. But the problem is when the two don't meet at all and you have such a generational talent like Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
I can kind of understand the dad wanting to get involved and, getting a nice payday out of it and stuff like that. But there's levels to paydays. I mean, if this was the kind of contract, if we believe it to be true, and I don't see why Barcelona would have lied about it, but the figures were like absolutely off the scale.
There's getting yourself a good payday, but then there's also extortion, and the way these guys are going on, it's kind of towards the latter there. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, they're looking at keeping all the image rights to themselves. 20 million sign on for Raiola, 20 million for the dad. Like, it's Barcelona, if they get involved in that deal, they
I can't, like, Barcelona are not going to
can't
touch
see
the
it
deal,
happen.
clearly. I mean, Barcelona straight away, when they signed the contract, straight away just threw it out there to the public and walked away straight away.
I was reading this morning that Bayern Munich fancy their chances of signing him next summer if he stays at Dortmund this summer, if he stays at Dortmund for another year. I think they're looking at him coming in and replacing Lewandowski. Because let's be real, in Germany, that's the way things work. You're a great player at Dortmund and you go to Munich. It's the way it's been for a long, long time. And then when things don't work out for you at Munich, you go back to Dortmund. Yeah. And I think people at both clubs, they get a bit disgruntled when the deals happen at first, but they're willing to accept you back when it doesn't work out, because you're back at the club that they love and what have you.
Munich are such a professionally run club in terms of financials that they're never going to drop that type. Well, they're never going to drop the money that's being banded around at the moment.
Yeah.
What that would do to the real crux of this is not so much the fees and not so much the release clause. The crux of this is really the pay demands, the wages, the 600 grand net. I mean, what that does to a club, it just destroys it, because it's not only that you're bringing him in on 600 grand net. You know, you have every other player at the club going to knock on your door and go, right, well, I want this, and I want this, and I want this. And before you know it, that 600 grand net, that's crazy for a single player anyway, suddenly bumps up other players at the club 100 grand, 150 grand, 200 grand. So before you know it, your wage bill is jumping, a couple of million a week without you even realizing.
What you're saying there about, like, a lot of players will be in contracts at the bigger clubs, that if someone, say, for instance, Haaland came in at Man City and he was like, right, I want 600k a week. I'm sure the likes of De Bruyne and all his agents be on the phone and saying, well, right, grand, I'll have what he's having. Yeah. You know, we've had it at United with Wayne Rooney and all. But that's the worry for me, is you look at the way Liverpool's being ran, and the lads in Redmond, they were talking about yesterday, and they were saying that as much as it would be nice to have Man City's money coming in the door, and you're just sitting there, you can sit back, watch the football every week, and you're kind of guaranteed at least one trophy every season. It could get boring, but the worry is now with FIFA being called, like their card was called as being, we all know about the corruption there, and then financial fair play is being eased off. The likes of Man City that have that type of money to wash, whereas the way Liverpool are running things, you look at the money that Sadio Mane is on, he should be getting at least double. You look at, I was reading this morning about Salah's agent saying that he's only 29, he's not 50, and he's still got another 3-4 years at the top, and like, he's been in the top 5 best players in the world for the last 4 or 5 years. Give him what he deserves. But then you look at the way structure at Liverpool is, FSG are never going to, they'll never bend over and say, yeah, no problem. They don't do things like that. So with financial fair play being eased off, and the likes of Haaland coming along and saying he wants 600k a week, let's be real, wherever he goes, he's going to be getting over 450k a week. So that's the frightening thing, that only certain clubs have that type of money where they can turn around and say, well, Liverpool aren't going to afford him. Man United can't afford him. I don't see how Man United can afford that deal either, with the debt that they're in, unless I don't know what bill deal Haaland has, but unless the likes what happened with Pogba, where the boot manufacturer steps in and says, right, well, we'll pay a third of his wages if he sells this many jerseys and what have you.
But so even with those things, and like even with boot deals or jerseys or any of that kind of thing, someone eventually still has to be responsible for 600 bags a week going into his paycheck. And it doesn't matter whether it's Adidas or Nike or the club, or the Red Sox or Chevrolet or whoever it is. Someone is still answerable at the end of the day, and then you get a flood of knocks on the door. Like, as you said, there's only a certain amount of clubs in the world, and you probably count them on less than one hand, that can afford to throw that kind of money at a player. And the question is, like I don't think City would even be stupid enough to do that. Forget about whether they can afford it or not. We know they can afford it. But, it's like going out buying these trophy kind of players. You know what I mean? It's absolutely, it's what it creates. And the reason I think City won't go in for a meter is because De Bruyne signed a new contract there the other day to keep him there till 2025. Now, there's no way he's signing that new contract if there's a sniff of Haaland coming in, because he would hold out for more, because he'd go knocking on the door going, well, I'm Kevin De Bruyne. I'm the best midfielder in Europe. How come this guy is getting this and yous are offering me this? I want an extra 100 grand. So that tells me that Haaland probably isn't going to Man City.
I don't think, when I read that this morning about Munich looking to take him next summer, the summer of 2022, and with the financial situation because of the pandemic in the last, like, when you think about, like, we'll be at it nearly 18 months when this transfer window finishes, this summer's transfer window finishes. Even though the likes of Man City have so much money, there is a lot of insecurity still within teams. Like, the longer it goes without fans and what have you, stuff like that, and you don't have like the commercialized tourist fans coming over and just walking into the club stores and throwing fucking 500 bags at like ridiculous items, like pen, like just stupid things. We don't have that. When I read that this morning, I was thinking that's the move that makes most sense for him. I can't see anybody paying the money for him this summer. Like, the only way I see him signing a deal this summer will be the likes of a Naby Keita thing. Right, we'll sign you now, but it's for January or it's for next summer. I just can't see it happening.
Like a pre-contract agreement.
A pre-contract agreement where the club can generate money throughout next season with the fans coming back in, and they're opening up the stadiums to fans again and tours and what have you, where they can generate money for 12 months and say, right, he's going to be our main signing this summer. We can sell off Jesus, we can sell X, Y, and Z. There's the money towards his deal. We'll bring a few lads through with the youth system, and that's the way we're going with things. I just cannot. If the only way I think he signs a deal this summer is if it's something like that, a pre-contract. Because when you think about it, no one had a pre-season last summer, right? He's been injured already, I think, twice this season. He's going into the Euros. Norway qualified, did they?
I think so.
I think they did, because there's extra teams that, he's coming out of the Euros. He's gone straight back into the Bundesliga. Then he's got the World Cup then in January if they qualify for that. I just can't see, again, the risk of spending so much money with such a big 12 months ahead. I just think it's ridiculous. I really do think it's ridiculous. But when I read that this morning, it just opened my eyes a bit more, and I seen things a bit clearly. And I actually do see him staying in Germany.
Yeah. And I suppose the other risk as well is we've seen a number of stars of the Bundesliga coming into the Premier League and, not meeting the expectation at all. You've seen Timo Werner this year, absolute baller. Came into the Prem for Chelsea this season and has flattered to deceive, really. You know what I mean? Mkhitaryan came in. A number of players have come in, you know what I mean? So I don't know whether, he's absolutely outstanding as a player. There's no doubt about that. You could see it in him, and he's a monster of a player as well. But it'll be interesting to see if he does come into the Premiership. Does that transfer over? Let's move on to another one then. We'll park that at the moment because it's a real interesting one. And
I'm sure regarding him, I'm sure we'll be talking about him every 2 weeks.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, because speculation just grows and grows and grows. But I can guarantee you when he is signed, or if he does move somewhere, it's not going to be for the shekels that they tried to hand to that they tried to hold Barcelona up for. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. What you're thinking on Edson Cavani? Re-signing at United. I mean, there's a lot of speculation and talk. Some stories came out there a week or two ago that he wants to return to Boca Juniors to finish out his career. United seem to want to hold on to him again for another year because it's probably a cheaper version than if they had to go out and replace him. When he's come in, I mean, he's done pretty well. I mean, he scored a number of critical goals for them this season, but tends to miss a bit of time. You might get a run of 3, 4, 5 games out of him, then he goes missing for 6 or 7 games. what you thinking on Cavani?
Yeah, when I read about that over the weekend about United trying to twist his arm to get him to stay for another year, I thought the mind was already made up, that he'd already told United he was leaving, and a lot of this is coming down to the whole financial insecurity in football. I think that United know they don't have the money to go out and get Haaland. They're going to have to strengthen elsewhere. So keeping Cavani, good player, holds the ball up well. He has scored a couple of vital goals. I just think the thing that United are missing out with is the fact that he doesn't play. He can't play every week. He picks up those couple of niggling injuries. Yeah, I was surprised when I read about, because I thought his mind was made up. I thought he wanted to move back home, be closer to his family, have 2 or 3 years playing with Bocas or what have you. Yeah, so when I read that Solskjaer was trying to convince him to stay for another year, I think all this is coming into light now because the whole financial insecurity, and they know they haven't got the money to go out and buy the likes of Haaland. I don't even think they have the money to go and buy Harry Kane, if I'm honest. So I think it's like looking at, right, well, can we keep him? We have Rashford, we have Greenwood, and there's a couple of young lads coming through, but United, they need to strengthen in the back line. More so than worry. That's worry about your back four, your back five before you start worrying about up top. And I think worrying about Paul Pogba is more of an issue than the whole getting in a centre forward.
Yeah, I think they've probably stopped worrying about Paul Pogba at this stage, because there's been so much talk over the last year and a half of him leaving every time there's a transfer window. But they can't seem to find a home for him, and especially during these COVID times, it's even harder to find a home for him. So I don't think I think he's similar to Harry Kane, where he's playing that game for more money and more contract. But I think in terms of Cavani, I think the big loss, if he was to go back to Boca Juniors for United, is you lose that experience around the likes of a Mason Greenwood, who's developing at the moment into a lovely player, and to have the likes of an Edson Cavani around him, advising them and bringing him on and giving them that wealth of experience that Cavani has had at the highest level in Europe. That would be the biggest loss for me. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I'd be concerned about
he's
that.
a winner, isn't he? He's the winning mentality. It's quite similar now. Again, I'm only bringing in Steven Gerrard's name because similar to that, when Gerrard was coming to the end of his career and you have young lads coming through, you want them to learn off the best. And with regarding centre forwards, Cavani is up there with the best. So we can see that side of things keeping him. Like, I know Greenwood is like he's not a baby anymore, you know what I mean? But you want them learning off. You want Greenwood learning off Cavani more so than you want Greenwood learning off Rashford. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of Liverpool fans were disappointed when Gerrard went a year or two too early, because that winning mentality, that, like, I'm all about the badge and nothing else. Like, you need players like that around for younger lads coming through. So completely agree with you on that side of things.
Yeah, well, I know James Cooper did an interview there on the United stand a few weeks ago, and he came out and he reckoned that United had about 100 million to spend in the transfer window, plus anything they earn from outgoings. But I mean, we've obviously seen in previous transfer windows, they've really struggled to unload players at times.
The only one there that you'd look at as a massive outgoing is Paul Pogba. And again, I do think they'll be stuck with him because no one has money. Real Madrid don't have money to get him. Juventus are trying to free up Rabiot, and there's talk of Aaron Ramsey might be going to Liverpool. That's the only place I can see Paul Pogba. PSG or else Juventus. Like, the only two places. Real Madrid don't have the money. Barcelona don't have the money. So there's a lot of uncertainties at United with what you were saying there about trying to generate money from sales. They don't have many players there to. It's like Liverpool. Liverpool are in the same situation. If Liverpool have to generate money this summer, they have to sell about 12 players, and that'll be to generate, and it won't be a massive figure that it generates.
Yeah, you would see like 6 or 8 players going out and maybe 2 coming in for that value. Like, that's the real problem. I suppose
just before we finish.
Yeah, go on.
Just before you finish up on that, United are in a situation where they might only have 100 million to spend, but because it's Man United and because it's Champions League football, teams aren't going to look what they end up paying out. They end up paying 50 million over the price for Harry Maguire because it's Man United. So they United fans, we're hoping to get Man United fans on here with us, have a chat about what they need and want. But again, as I said in the teaser, you've got to be realistic. I'm a Liverpool fan. I'd love to sign Haaland. I'd love to sign Varane. I'd love to sign Declan Rice. You have to be realistic. The year that's passed in football, there's no money there for teams to go out and spend massive money. So, you know, I think the expectations of the bigger clubs, other than the likes of City, other than the likes of Juventus and stuff like that, you've got to lower your expectations this summer because there's not a lot going to be happening.
Yeah, I think this transfer window is going to really show how good the directors of football and the scouting systems are at each club. Because
Thank God we have Nick Edwards.
Yeah, absolutely. But clubs are going to really try and find, you know, that 25 to 30 million pound player that's absolute quality. And that's going to be the real challenges for clubs this year. I see a lot of business being done, but I see a lot of business being done between the 30 to 50 million range or a little bit lower. I don't see clubs going out and just throwing 100 million and 120 million and 150 million.
Look at the David Alaba situation. You know, I mean, everyone thought that was a dead cert for him to go to Real Madrid. Now it looks like Real Madrid don't have the money, and his agent is sounding out to Barcelona saying, "Here, what's the story? Any chance you might come in with us?" Yeah. He might turn out to stay at Munich in next season.
Yeah, no, it's certainly an interesting time in terms of transfers, especially with the problems that clubs are having in trying to generate revenue with COVID and stuff like that. Let's move on and touch on for the next few minutes of the show about our own club, Liverpool. What you're thinking there at the moment? Who do you see coming in, going out? Where do you think we need to strengthen? I mean, naturally, the bench has to be strengthened no matter what.
The bench certainly needs to be. I think that's what's let us down. As I said on Monday night on the mashup, it's all well and good when you're winning games and you have success. You get the 2 Champions League finals in a row, you win 1, you lose the league by a point, you then go and just take everyone to the next stratosphere and just march away with the league. It's all well and good when you have the likes of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain coming off the bench when you're on a run of winning fucking 20 games in a row and you have Shaqiri starting against Everton because you're resting lads and you have Divock Origi coming on with the odd goal. But because everything is so rosy in the garden, everybody has halos around these guys' heads. This season, class is told for me. I've not rated Divock Origi, cult hero and all that, and the goal against Everton is 2 goals against Barcelona. I've personally never rated Divock Origi. I don't think he fits the style of play at Liverpool. You know, he might do well if he's leading the line for the likes of the Southampton or something like that. I want Liverpool to be the best all the time. Obviously, I'm a Liverpool fan, but just this season has really told for me that the likes of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain can't be relied on, Shaqiri can't be relied on, Divock Origi can't be relied on. Because there's been so much pressure on the team, we still can't really say about Nico Williams. You know what I mean? He's been thrown in the deep end and it's not really worked. Kostas Tsimikas, I think he's played about 25 minutes this season. I couldn't really tell you what he's up to. This summer's going to be a really, really telling year for going to be a really telling transfer window for Liverpool, because I'm beginning to worry that if we don't get Champions League football, that Mo Salah is going to want out. All we've been hearing recently is that he wants X amount of money, and his agent has come out in the last couple of days and said that, you know, Mo's 29, he's been in the top 5 best players in the world for the last 4 or 5 years. Give him what he's worth. His agent is obviously saying that to sound out to the likes of PSG, to sound out to the likes of Real Madrid, who will have the money to give him what they think he's worth, especially if Mbappe is going. That's my biggest concern, because Liverpool went through a spell of it was sell to buy, you know, and after not capitalising after winning the league last year and going out. Now, I know we've had injuries, but I stopped using that as an excuse a good while back because there's only so many times you can use that excuse. The lads who we've mentioned, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Shaqiri, Origi, when it's been put to them that we need fresh legs, that we need a bit of a break, something different, they haven't stepped up. So you've them three obviously you've mentioned that they could leave, but my fear is, as much as Mo Salah has like really annoyed me with some of his performances this year, he scored 28 goals this season. 18 of them goals were away from home. He's been Liverpool's best player by a country mile again. And I think if we lose that in the summer, I just see us taking another massive step backwards, because to be the best, like to be up at the very top, you have to have the best players. And if we sell Salah, I still don't see FSG going out and spending massive money to replace him. They're certainly not going to go out and buy Erling Haaland.
I think when you look at it in terms of, like, if we were to miss out on top 4 or Champions League, you know, and Mo Salah was to decide to leave, it's saying a lot about Mo Salah as well, isn't it? Because when you think about the season that we've had, and you think about how we've turned Mo Salah into a global superstar. There's no doubt about that. And you have to weigh up everything that we've had this season. I mean, we've lost so many players.
Yeah.
You know, losing the fans, COVID, and I know all these teams have had to face this, but no one has lost the amount of players that we've lost, and not critical players. You know what I mean? So for Mo, if he was to decide to leave us because we don't make the Champions League this year, rather than staying to get us back there again when we do have our full team back, you know, would say a lot about Mo Salah as well. You know what I mean? And I don't want to go down that road either, because I love Mo Salah. You know what I mean? But I just think for any Liverpool player, any of the top players, the likes of himself or Mane or Bobby, you know, or Virgil or any of those players, or Fabinho, any of those, if they were starting to look at their future and saying, well, maybe I don't fancy this now because we didn't make Champions League. I mean, you've got to look at the season that it was. Klopp lost his mother. Alisson lost his father. So much stuff has hit us this year in a negative way to push us over the edge. And the fact that we're even in a top 4 race, to me, is a miracle. So this summer, I think, will say a lot about those players in terms of, you know, how much they love Liverpool Football Club and how much they're understanding of what's gone on. Like I understand if a player wants to make and have another big move because he's coming towards, you know, the last big move of his career or something like that.
Yeah, he's just gone 29. Like,
yeah, but to use potentially that we didn't make top 4 or get Champions League, it's, to me, it's just deplorable, really, if that was used, you know, considering. I mean, he, like, these guys who may use these excuses, these guys are part of the reason why we don't make it. You know what I mean?
I'd love to think that. See, the problem with this season with Liverpool was so much negativity around it now. You know, we've had with the abuse towards it. Come here, I'll put my hands up. Some of the stuff we've been saying in the fan forums, or like in live game forums, now, I've nothing racist or anything like that, you know. But it's, you get fans who are saying, like, oh, you're only a glory hunter. I'm supporting Liverpool since 1994. I've not had much glory to hunt. Do you get me? So when you set a standard of the last 3 years and then you come into this season, again, it's down to Liverpool missed a trick in the summer. We're not going out and buying those 3 or 4 players who are going to come off the bench and they're as good as what's on the pitch, if not better. Now, I know Jota came in and he hit the ground running, but then we lost him to a long period of time through injury. We had Fabinho, who was our best midfielder, going back into a centre-half position. You know, he lost Jordan Henderson. Me and you, like, we were in New York 2 years ago, and we were sitting in Carragher's bar, and we were chasing a game against Southampton, and the camera goes to the sideline. Jordan Henderson's coming on, and the two of us looked at each other and was like, you're chasing the league title and you're bringing Jordan Henderson. And ever since that game, he's been the best player Liverpool have. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you're looking at, you're losing him. To me, that's one of the main issues, is when Henderson's not playing. I don't see any leaders in the team. None whatsoever. I think Alisson's being affected by little stints this season where he's made bad errors. I think he's been, as you would be, massively affected by losing his father. You know, not having that commanding figure who's been the backbone of the team with Virgil van Dijk and Jordan Henderson for the last 3 years. You know, it's had a knock-on effect in the back five. That then trickles into the midfield. That then trickles into the front three, who, even though for 3 or 4 years they were cracking in goals for the fun of it, when the extra pressure is on that we need to win games, and everybody in the whole footballing world is looking at Bobby Firmino, Sadio Mane and Mo Salah to score every single game, because let's be real, that's the pressure that's on them. People are looking on the outside in saying, them three should be scoring every single game. That doesn't have, football doesn't work that way. That only happens in FIFA. You know what I mean? But there's so much pressure on the team. I'd like to think that this summer, I know the Euros is coming along, but to me personally, we're not going to have a season that bad again. I think this team needs a complete reset. They need to get away on a trip for 2 weeks together after the Euros, get a good pre-season. You know, everyone sits down and just, what happened last season, right? Everyone gets up and says their piece. It's put into a box. It's forgotten about. But just really hope, there's talk of FSG. James Pearce has been saying it. David Maddox has been saying it, that FSG are really going to back Klopp this summer and go out and get him the players that he wants to strengthen the squad, not the team, the squad. And for once, I want to believe that, because we missed the trick last year. Liverpool needed to go out after winning the league, after winning the Champions League, being in the Champions League final the year before that, and go out and buy 4 or 5 players that were going to put other teams on notice and say, how good have they been for the last 3 years? Look who they've brought in. You know, these aren't going away anytime soon. So this season could be a blessing in disguise to show Klopp and the owners what we need. Yeah. So that's the way I'm trying to be optimistic about, in the sense that Van Dijk is going to come back. Jordan Henderson's going to come back completely recharged. We get rid of the deadwood once and for all. Get in those 4 or 5 players that are going to take us to the next level, and just put this season into a box and forget about it.
Yeah, it'll be definitely one of those transfer windows where we need to bridge the gap and the gulf in skill and in quality between what's on the pitch and what sits on the bench. You know, that can't be a situation anymore where, you know, you're taking off Sadio Mane and you're bringing on Shaqiri, or you're taking off Mo Salah or you're bringing on Divock Origi. And no disrespect to any of those players.
But they're just not.
But Liverpool
they're not
Football
take
Club,
us there.
Yeah, Liverpool Football Club is now at a different level now, and it's not at the level it was at. It's at a very different level now, where there's an expectation now in terms of success. But the only way that you can, in terms of success, the only way you can arrive there now is, like, I suppose, similar to the City model, where you nearly have a player to come in of equal quality when a player gets injured or comes out of the team. But again, trying to figure out how you attract those players in, you know what I mean? Like let's, for instance, imagine if you're talking to Koulibaly to come in. How are you going to convince Koulibaly to come to Liverpool if you're going to say to him, well, look, a lot of the time you might be on the bench because we play Virgil and we play Joe Gomez, but you will get your chance. Is he going to want to come and sit there to get his chance? And, you know, when you're trying to match the quality.
I think that I personally, I can see, if we're going to bring in another centre half, I can see Matip going in the summer. That could be just like my personal opinion, but I can see Phillips getting a new contract. I don't know what's going to happen with Kabak. There could be a situation now when it comes into the summer, like there's talks of your man Konate. So like that will leave us, if Konate was to come in and we had to keep Kabak, right, you'd have Phillips, Kabak, Konate, Van Dijk, Joe Gomez, Matip. I think Reece Williams will go out on loan to someone in the Championship, or maybe someone that's coming up out of the Championship to the Premier League. Yeah. We do need another centre half. Like let's be real, as good as Joe Gomez was before he got injured, he's a history of getting bad injuries. As good as Matip was, he's made of gingerbread biscuits. You know, it's Kabak. Is he really a big risk at 20 million? Someone to have on the bench? I don't think so. Not nowadays.
The talk the other day actually is that it might be 9 million.
Yeah, there's a lot of And with Kunate as well, that the buyout clause isn't as big as people said it was.
Yeah.
But that's just going back to having the players on the bench who are necessarily as good, if not better, on the bench. There's been a stigma with Liverpool for probably about 10, 15 years. It was there when Benitez was there, it was there when Rodgers was there, about harmony in the squad. Great teams in the past, whether it be Chelsea, Man City, whether it be United, whether it be Barcelona, whether it's Real Madrid, you know, managers have to just bite down and tell these lads, look, if we want to be successful and if you want to be successful, because if we're not successful, you're going to be knocking on my door and somewhere saying, where's this team going? Klopp is that type of man where he can sit all those lads and say, look, lads, I'm bringing in a centre back. Robbo, I'm bringing in a left back who's really going to test you. Fabinho, I'm bringing in another guy in the middle. You three up front, you four up front. I'm bringing in a guy who's going to put. If these lads don't understand that you have to have that certain quality sitting on the bench, pushing those guys, and maybe someday taking a chance, and those guys are sitting on the bench. If you don't want that as a player, then you may give up the game. You can't just, I want to go to Real Madrid, I want to get 400 grand a week, I want to sit on the bench every week and pick up medals. Look at Danny, I always go back to Danny Ings in this situation. Liverpool wanted him to stay, right? Danny Ings could have sat on the bench for Liverpool, maybe played 20, 25 games a season, won a Champions League, won a Premier League. Danny Ings knew he could lead the line for a team in the Premier League. Told Jurgen Klopp, would love to stay. But for me personally, as a player, I want to go somewhere and show what I'm worth. And he's gone off and shown his worth. And look what's come from it. Man City are looking to place Aguero with him. You know what I mean? Like these lads, as good as they are, like there's no competition for places at Liverpool, and that's the problem. We need to go out. We need to get 5 or 6 players that these lads that are in the squad at the moment are going to sit back and say, right, I've got to open my game. That's been one of the massive problems, as well as injuries. That's been one of the massive problems this season. Lads are complacent. They're too comfortable. Simiskis isn't up to lacing Robbo's boots. Nico Williams can't replace Trent Alexander-Arnold. You know, like the back, Jurgen Klopp was afraid of his life to play Kabak and Phillips at centre half together until he stuck them in together and they fucking shone like a bleeding halo. You have to take those risks. You have to take those gambles. You have to have the boy in the team where these lads say, right, it's for the best of the team. I want to be successful. Look where the team was before this season happened. You know, we can get back to that. We just need these lads to buy into what Klopp is thinking and saying, right, okay, I don't need to go elsewhere to win things. I'm going to stay here. Someone else is going to come in and going to push me to the next level. If I'm injured, they're going to step in and they're going to set the bar for me when I come back. That's the way football works.
Yeah. It's certainly going to be an interesting transfer window. And I know with Liverpool, they like to get that business done early as well. So they're not necessarily going to be hanging around for some player to shine at the Euros and then throw an extra 15 or 20 million on his valuation.
I reckon they've already got the transfer list already done. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 3 or 4 weeks you see a forced player sign a contract already. I'm excited as much as I'm kind of nervous about who we might sell to make up big, like have more funds. I'm excited about who comes in, because the talk coming out from the journals close to the club, David Maddox, James Pearce, is that FSG are going to back Jurgen this summer, and that this whole selling the 10% of the club to Red Cardinal, that money is going to help. That's going to help towards the Van Dijk's new contract, Fabinho's new contract. So as much as I'm nervous about who, because you know that sell to buy thing is always hanging around Liverpool, as much as I'm nervous about that, I'm really, really excited, because some of the names that are being linked, you know, if we can get 3 or 4 of them in, next season's going to be a really, really big season for us.
Plus, as we said, I mean, Van Dijk and Hendo and Gomez and all coming back, they're going to feel like new signings again. You know what I mean? They're going to be itching to get back on the pitch, especially Van Dijk. I mean, he's going to have a massive point to prove next season.
Yeah.
Well, listen, this has been absolutely brilliant. Our first show, like, it's a pleasure as
Come on,
always.
you Reds.
And it's a pleasure to have a co-host on the show for a change as well. So it's great going forward, you know. But as always, head over to the Dynamo Podcast Network on YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification. This has been your first Upper Transfer show. Obviously, we're on audio as well, so you'll catch us over there on Podbean, Spotify, wherever you pick up your audio shows. So for myself and my co-host, Dean. We will catch you again next week.